Welcome. This is the Midlife Rising podcast. Okay, I really want to know if you can relate to this. You said yes when you wanted to say no, again and again and again. You've put everyone else first, maybe your friends, your family, your coworkers, clients, the boss, even the dog. I put the dog before me sometimes, a lot of times. And at the end of the day, you feel like you've taken care of everyone else but you. And that leaves you exhausted and maybe even resentful of either the people demanding your time or just the 8 million demands on your time. If that hits close to home, then this episode is for you. Even if you already know you're a people pleaser and are a recovering people pleaser. Today, we're diving into people pleasing in midlife, how to recognize the signs that you are one, the hidden mistakes that are keeping you stuck, and how it links to menopause symptoms. This is something that nobody else talks about. By the end of our conversation between Jen and I, you might even recognize the patterns that are driving your own people pleasing and the mistakes that you might be making that actually make it worse, and what you need to do to stop pleasing for good. So if you're curious about all of this, then let's get started. You're a woman over 40 who spent your life being the one who holds it all together. But now your body's changing and your soul is done pretending everything is fine. Welcome to Midlife Rising. We're your hosts, Sherry and Jen, twin sisters and modern medicine women, here to help you rewire your stress response, balance your hormones, and reclaim your feminine power. Every episode is a rebellion against the rules you never agreed to and a return to yourself. Join us where midlife isn't a crisis, it's a catalyst. Welcome back to the Midlife Rising podcast. Hi, Jen.
Hey.
I am excited to talk about this topic because it is so common. The number of women that tell me that they are people pleasers or recovering people pleasers is like, I think almost everybody I know.
Well, Cher, from my research that I did for my previous leadership business, people pleasing was the number one of the 6 ways that women keep themselves busy. People pleasing was the number one.
Yep. It's something that all my clients talk about. They want to stop, that they call themselves recovering people pleasers because they've become aware that they are one, and they try to force themselves to say no when they want to, like when they're trying to not to do whatever it is. And yet they still can't seem to do it.
Nope. And you know what? There are some, so I was talking to Mom about this recently, and because I was trying to explain to her one of the things that we're working on. And she said to me, well, do people actually need help with that? Because when I found out that I was a people pleaser, I just stopped. And I was sort of like, well, that's because you're not a people pleaser. But she was pleasing other people in her younger days. And then, but she doesn't have the same issues that caused her to not stop. You and I are people pleasers, and for a very long time couldn't stop.
I did not know I was a people pleaser.
Oh.
Like I don't know if I really actually put very much thought into it. Really.
Oh, okay.
I think what drew my attention to it was really all the work that I was doing on myself because I didn't get to have kids. I was always accommodating everybody around me. I sort of thought, well, I don't have kids, so I must have more time than they do. So I was always offering, well, I can come to you, all my friends who live 2 hours away from me. And even with our family, like I would say, well, it's too much for you guys to drive all the way up to Collingwood. We'll come to you. It doesn't, like, we're good with that. Or, or I would offer to bring stuff, like, let me bring all the food, or I was always overextending. And I never realized I was doing that. I sort of justified it because I thought, well, I have more time than you. And yet what I realized was I didn't have the time for a whole bunch of reasons that we're going to get into. But I didn't realize that that was people pleasing. There was no like no in there, yes or no. It was actually me. And I was trying to please, like it was me offering. Yeah. And I was trying, yet I was trying to please my friends and my family and whoever.
That's a great example because people often think of people pleasing as like saying yes to everything. And that's the easiest way for me to talk about it. But it's so much more. On that note, Cher, I do it too. And I am the one with the child. Like, it doesn't matter whether I mean, now I catch myself, but I will find myself thinking, like if I'm making a coffee date with somebody, I'll think, oh, well, I should think of a place that's close to where they are and go there.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, wait a minute. Why should I go to them? Like and what that is it's putting more value on their time than on my own time.
Yeah.
Which is putting them above me.
So why don't we start, Jen, by talking about how do you know if you're a people pleaser? Like we just talked about one of the things that we do when we're people pleasers, and how it's not just a matter of saying yes when you really want to say no. There's all kinds of different ways that this can show up that I think you're going to probably tell me some things that I hadn't even thought of.
I actually love the way Brene Brown sums it up. She says that people pleasing is defining your value as how you are received.
Oh, that's a different way of saying it.
So it's like if you have a creative project, you're not necessarily, somebody was just talking to me about this on a call the other night. She used to do her art. She's a painter and she was painting to try to sell the painting. She was painting in the hopes that everybody else would like it. And at the last minute, she was doing a gallery show. At the last minute, she did 3 more paintings that she just painted they didn't match the rest of the collection at all. She just painted 3 paintings that were from her heart. She's just like, this is what I want to paint. And I'm just going to do it and put it in anyway, no matter how it looks. And I forget why she decided suddenly to do that. And those were the first to sell because and she said this to me, I was putting all my value on how this creative project was being received by others. So it's whether it's like your own value, it could be like whatever you have created. It could be like we hear it from entrepreneurs in our mentorship programs all the time, where there's lots of people who get really upset when people don't want to buy their stuff because they're taking it personally.
Yeah. That's how you know you're placing your value on something external to you and somebody's opinion of you, someone's opinion of your work,
you're giving away your value and sourcing it externally instead of feeling innately valuable.
Right. I really love that phrase, outsourcing your value to something external.
Yeah. It's like instead of, cultivating it internally. And most of us, like if I use the term self-worth, most people, I mean, certainly when I started talking about it, people would be like, well, you have lots of self-worth. What are you talking about? Because I looked like I had it all on the outside. I had the corporate career and I always had everything put together and I always hit my numbers. But inside there was all this self-doubt. So self-doubt is another sign that you are people pleasing because you are waiting for acceptance from somebody externally.
That makes sense.
Some basics are you don't like rocking the boat. You don't like upsetting people. You don't like it when people are annoyed with you.
Stop right there for a second, Jen, because I think just to sort of drive those home, I think what I've experienced with a lot of my clients is this idea of it's all about saying no instead of yes. Like saying yes when I want to say no. It's about a boundary. And it's so much more than that. It's like take not wanting to rock the boat. So that's people pleasing because you're concerned about somebody else's emotions. So you're literally trying to please them, to make them feel good instead of making them question what they're talking about, or making them maybe feel bad for their opinion or their idea, or that's managing people's emotions. And that is people pleasing. And I had never really thought of that as people pleasing until more recently.
Yep. Biting your tongue so you don't say what you want to say, or just being quiet. Like I noticed this was 15 years ago. I was at a party and there was, in South Africa, it's always there were lots of heated debates about politics and stuff. It was fun. However, at first, I was very afraid to voice my opinion with my own friends. And some of them were more like acquaintances, but I was afraid in even those settings to voice my opinion. And that's people pleasing, because I didn't want to rock the boat. I was afraid people wouldn't like me if they didn't like my opinion about something.
Okay, maybe I'll hold my tongue at this moment, because I wanted to say something about how that relates. Like there's actually risk there, right? Maybe this is the right time to talk about it. There's risk in sharing your opinion because we have such an innate and evolutionary need to belong. And so there's this deep-rooted, it's not even conditioning. It's a deep-rooted need to belong, and which means in a lot of cases, making sure you continue to be liked, making sure you continue to fit in with the crowd. Because if you didn't belong, if our ancestors didn't belong, if they were cast out, there's a risk to their survival. So it's not just a matter of overcoming this, I don't know, conditioning to say no. It's actually deep rooted. It's in our DNA to not want to share your political opinion, or to not want to rock the boat. It goes way deeper than I think what most people out there, including myself until recently, believed.
Another way that it can show up, I got this new job at Nestle, and I was supposed to implement a new change process, a new planning process. And so I was like a project manager, managing this whole change process across the entire organization. And what I started by doing is getting a lot of opinions. How's it working now? What's working, what's not working? And that was good to start that way. However, I kept doing that. Every time I was going to implement or roll out a next part of it, I spent so much time. I called it politicking. Like I was getting buy-in is the way I thought of it. And then one day I was talking to one of the directors, and he's about this thing and what I was doing. And he said, Jen, stop surveying people and go do it. And I went, what? And that was when this huge penny dropped out of the sky, that I was like, oh my goodness, I am people pleasing, and this is pervading every aspect of my life. Like how I show up in everything I do. That wasn't about saying yes or no to anything. It wasn't setting a boundary, but it was. And it was making me so busy, and it was slowing me down. Like I was so busy talking to people, I was making them more busy than they needed to be, because they were, coming to meetings with me, and it was slowing me down because I wouldn't just make a decision, because I was trying to find some sort of consensus across everybody, which of course there were 80 plus, there was 120 people actually who were involved in this process, directly involved. Like I was trying to get everybody to buy in, and that was never going to happen. So those are some examples of how it can show up. And then, I wanted to touch on some of the symptoms of it before we get into the root causes. Because there's very distinct ways that it feels in the body that you might not be recognizing. And this took longer for me to recognize in myself. Number one is resentment. So if you are resenting the 8 million demands on your time, or resenting like the person who's asking.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. Like I have, there, when someone calls me sometimes and it's somebody that I don't have the time to talk to at that point, I resent. I'm like, why are you calling me? And I caught myself one day. I was like, this person's just calling me when it suits them. I don't have to pick up the phone right now. I don't have to resent them. But that was what it was this, I don't know. I think it was resentment. I was annoyed. Like, why are you putting me out right now? You're causing me to have to say no and not pick up the phone.
You know what? I bet you even more deeper than that, Cher, is that, so you didn't pick up the phone. There's a little bit of guilt that you didn't pick up the phone. And now you're resenting her because she quote unquote made you feel guilty.
Yeah. Yep.
Because we don't like feeling guilt, right? So now you're a bad person because you didn't pick up the phone and talk to your friend at the moment she called when you happened to be busy, which is a perfectly good excuse to not pick up the phone.
It happened. I mean, I hear a lot of people talking about how they don't want to talk to their moms or they don't want to talk to, if you're busy with something, it could be anybody. You're absolutely right.
Women talk to me about the guilt all the time. They're just like, I feel guilty every time I set a boundary. And beneath that are some other things. And one is that you resent somebody because of the guilt. And the guilt itself is coming from this little voice that told you in your childhood to be kind or something like that. So resentment and guilt are two of the biggest things that people talk about. And then envy.
I was just about to say that actually, because another Brene Brown, I wish I had the definition in front of me. In Atlas of the Heart, she describes envy and resentment. And we think of resentment as closely related to anger. And her research showed that it's actually more closely related to envy. There's those people who just are willing to ask for anything.
Yes.
They just...
I know one of those. She's in my life.
I think we all have one of those in our life. Someone who's they have no qualms about asking for what they want. The way that Brene Brown describes resentment is you're lying on the couch and relaxing, and I don't feel like I can do that. So, the person who's willing to ask for what they want, we resent them because we actually envy that they're able to do that. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very possible. So those are the three biggest emotions that you might be feeling. There's others too, but you might be feeling in your body when you are people pleasing without realizing it.
And how does, you were telling me earlier that this shows up differently in midlife than in younger years.
Well, the reason that it shows up in midlife, so it becomes more loud in midlife. Like the resentment feels stronger. The guilt feels stronger. Sometimes it's shame. It's not actually guilt sometimes that women feel. It's like they actually feel like, I used to feel this, that I was a bad person. Like I am being unchristian for being unkind to this person, for saying no, or for declining something, or for leaving the party early, or, stuff like that. And so there can be a lot of shame around that too. So actually that's another cause actually of people pleasing, is we don't want to feel all of those emotions. And in midlife, those emotions become stronger. First reason is when our estrogen starts to decline, physiologically, our bodies are telling us that nurturing time is over. We don't have to be so nurturing to others. And so if you've spent your life serving other people, suddenly when that hormone drops, it becomes less tolerable to keep serving everybody else.
Right. It's like what we talked about
in our last episode.
Last
episode
week's
12.
episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that there's a physiological change in your body that makes people pleasing. It makes it less tolerable to please others and to serve others because your body literally doesn't want to anymore. It's telling you that time of your life is over. And then the hormonal fluctuations sometimes can make it harder for us to remain calm and to control our emotions. So then the emotions become a little more explosive. So when you hold in too many no's and say yes to too many things, suddenly you say no to something and it comes out angry instead of, because you've been holding in all this resentment for so long and things become less tolerable that suddenly can become explosive rage.
Totally.
Listeners, you'll have to go back to previous episodes when we explain the effects of cortisol and how sex hormones act as a buffer to cortisol. Now that we don't have that buffer anymore, our cortisol is raised. So we are more stressed and less able to cope with 8 million demands. So in midlife, it all starts to feel overwhelming. They tell us in our program. So there's physiological reasons why people pleasing it sort of comes to a head in midlife. And then the other reason is that if you have been a people pleaser all your life, you're just freaking tired of it. Like it's become exhausting and I got to a point when I was like, I don't want to give a what other people think anymore. But then it was so hard to actually do it.
Yeah, we get tired of ourselves, but then we don't actually know how to change it.
Okay, so last reason why it comes up in midlife specifically is those emotions. So as I just said, we people please to avoid those emotions. Those are like impermissible emotions. I don't want to feel anger. I don't want to feel resentment. I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to feel guilty. We don't want to feel those emotions. So we people please to avoid those emotions.
That was such an aha moment for me when, I don't know whether it was you who said it years ago. And I was just like, what? This is what? It just made so much sense that I would say yes because I'm avoiding an emotion. When we think we're saying yes because we're trying to please somebody, because we don't want to disappoint them, but it's not about them, actually. It's about us and our own emotions.
Yeah, people pleasing has nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with the emotion that you feel when you displease them. You know what? I want to say something too, Sharon. Like, it's not about pleasing them necessarily. Like, this could be, you don't want to, I still don't like annoying people. I don't like it when people are annoyed with me or irritated by me. But think about it in a work situation. You're not necessarily trying to please your boss or please the executive or whoever, shareholders. There's like some underlying things that you're trying to avoid. And usually it's, I don't want to lose my job. Like it's fears. It's not always trying to please somebody. It's avoiding something.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I had to think about that for a minute when you first said it to me. I think it was you, because it's so different. Like people talk a lot about people pleasing out on social media and all the places. And it's always about, well, I don't want to disappoint this other person in front of me. So it's about their feelings. And when you flip that on its head and start thinking about it as it's not about the other person at all, it's actually about avoiding your own emotions. I just want to drive this home because it's such an important point that I don't, like most people are not thinking about it this way.
No. And when you think about it that way, people pleasing is actually very selfish.
Yes.
Because all you're doing is trying to selfishly avoid your own emotions that you don't want to feel.
Yeah. Which, okay, dear listener, you might resist this because it forces you to look at yourself and how this might actually be a selfish act is to avoid the emotions, the feelings of guilt or shame or whatever's coming up.
Because our society praises the woman who serves everybody else and does it all and the supermom. So we see people pleasing and service as virtuous.
Yes, exactly. And so if you're not, if you're actually doing this because of something within yourself, then suddenly this is no longer selfless. It's no longer a virtue. And that's going to be hard to swallow.
Well, and it's never a virtue, especially if you're feeling resentment. Like if you say yes to something and you go do something, like let's say it's a party invitation and you go to the party and you don't want to be there, you're not actually doing anyone any service. Like you're not being kind because you're there and you don't want to be there.
Yeah, you're bringing down the frequency of the party.
Yeah, and then if that causes resentment between you and that person, then you're not being kind to them anyway.
We talked about that a lot in the program that I was running for childless women, because most of them don't want to go to a baby shower. I still don't want to go to a baby shower. I never liked baby showers, but I always felt like I needed to say yes. I got to show up for my friend. It wasn't necessarily even that in the moment, I wouldn't have pinpointed that I felt resentful towards my friend, because I wasn't resentful towards my friend. I was actually resentful for whoever it was that created baby showers. Like whoever decided we need to have baby showers and this is how they need to look. Like, we need to play these silly games. And, if it was just going to a party and having some cake and opening up some gifts, like big deal. But it's the whole culture around it that I started to get resentful towards. And what I said to them was, to my childless clients who were complaining about not wanting to go, but feeling like they should, if you're not showing up with the energy of someone who wants to be there, then you're not showing up for your friend. And there's ways around it. Like you can always when it comes to a baby shower, like take a gift over there and have a coffee with her on like one-on-one.
Oh yeah.
Lots of ways around all the things that we say yes to.
Yeah, exactly. So, these emotions that you're feeling, understanding those emotions actually is the first step to understanding why you people please and why you can't stop. So most women, that at least the ones that become clients of mine, are trying to will themselves to stop people pleasing. And even if they're self-aware enough to know that they please others because of something that happened in their childhood, or not necessarily even one event, but like the way they were raised. Most women, and I bet you if you're listening to this, you already know that you're people pleasing. If you're a people pleaser, you're doing it because you're trying to prove your value. And that might be because you were trying to get love from a parent as a child.
Yeah, trying to get their approval.
Yeah. So lots of women tell me like, yep, my dad always said, like if I got a 90% on my exam, he'd say, where's the other 10%? And that will lead to perfectionism, which is another one of these coping strategies we're talking about today. But it also leads to pleasing. Like I can never please him, so I have to try harder to please him. So lots of women, you might be already aware that this comes from your upbringing in some way. So it can come from like trying to avoid criticism from a parent, or trying to get their love, trying to get approval, acceptance, avoid rejection on the other side of the coin.
Trying to manage their emotions, like trying to make sure that they don't get angry at you.
Yes. So all of those kinds of childhood experiences can lead you to be, somewhere on the spectrum of a people pleaser, because that's what you've learned is be kind to everybody else. It's not safe. So people pleasing is the way, I should backtrack here. We call people pleasing a midlife coping strategy because it is the way that your brain has trained itself to stay safe, to cope with life, to navigate through life. And staying safe could be from those things I've just said, stay from criticism, punishment, things like that. And to also get love,
which was a requirement when you were a child.
Like we need love. We physiologically need love. There's studies that show this. We need love to survive. Like we need hugs. We need touch.
Yes.
And we can't be abandoned either, because that's obviously certain death. Maybe not today, but evolutionary. So that is the biggest reason among women who people please that's where it comes from. There are other ways too, though.
What are some of those other ways?
societal conditioning that tells girls to be nice and to be kind. Little girls are raised different, like we talk about this, raised differently from boys. Societal conditioning that praises busyness, that praises the woman who serves, the giving woman, the giving mother, the perfect wife, all of that.
I have a story on that, Jen, that was so impactful for me. I was talking to a friend of mine, and his mother had passed away recently, and he was one of 4 boys. So family of 6 with 4 boys, husband and mother. And it broke my heart because he talked about his mother with such reverence and this sort of faraway smile on his face. But what really broke my heart was that what he talked about was how selfless his mother was, how she never did anything for herself, was the way he said it. She spent all her time taking care of us, never did anything for herself. And he said it with such reverence that I just thought, oh my gosh, she never had any time for herself. And it's that martyring from, quite often, it's certainly not always the male counterpart of our society, but quite often it is.
Well, how many times do you see that written in an obituary? She was a selfless woman. And that subliminally tells us that that's what we need to strive for. So these are layers of subconscious beliefs and patterns that we're talking about here.
Yeah, nobody comes right out and says, you need to serve everybody around you. Your kids come first. All these other people come first. But it's the subliminal message that we get from the obituaries. She never did anything for herself. She did everything for everyone else.
So it's our society keeps telling us that we need to be serving everybody else, and that everybody else, women come last and moms come even more last. So if we come last, then everybody else has to be put before us. So this will not affect you, listener, if you don't ascribe to those beliefs. But if you have internalized this societal conditioning, then it's going to be like that little voice, that sits on your shoulder and tells you should be doing this, you should be doing that.
And most people aren't even aware that we have a little voice, over the shoulder telling us you should be doing this and that. We're not aware of the beliefs that are underlying all of this.
And you know what? I don't want to, that's not your fault. It's that we have been so trained to listen to that voice of should that we no longer know the difference. So I was
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I was a people pleaser for so long that I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. Even if I was just choosing a restaurant to go for dinner, I'd be like, I don't know what I feel like. What do I feel like eating?
I'd wait for the other person to suggest a restaurant for the longest time in my life.
What do you feel like eating?
Yeah.
It's all this subconscious stuff that leads to people pleasing. And until you deal with and release the subconscious stuff and release some of those limiting beliefs and identities, like I'm a super mom is an identity. And if you can't shed that identity, you will continue to serve everybody else before you.
And that super mom, I've heard, so women will say that to me about someone else. They're talking about how someone else is a super mom. And, I don't know how they do it, but there's this reverence for them. And I can tell you, they're not a super mom. They're the same as everybody else. They're just portraying an identity. They're exhausted behind the scenes.
Yeah. And because of all of this conditioning, there might be some listeners who are thinking, yeah, right, I'm never going to get rid of this. Like it's impossible. And my job demands it. And I have all these demands on my life. And there's two things I want to say about that. One is I have seen it possible to not people please. Like I have a friend in this town who it looks sometimes on the outside like she's superwoman. Like she is involved in all kinds of things. She's got 4 kids. She's constantly running kids around and doing stuff. So it looks like she's got it all together. But I also know that she takes many vacations with just her and her husband. And she says no to plenty of things when she doesn't want to. She has to because she feels worthy of it. She's not doing the stuff because she's trying to please other people. She's doing it because she enjoys it.
Even just, we've got a retreat coming up, 2 of them. And having been a participant on a retreat, I distinctly recall all the mothers on the retreat that I went to talking about how they felt all this mom guilt because they were there on their own and the kids stayed home with the dad or the grandparent or someone else. And they felt all this guilt for taking that time for themselves. And I got to think that is a huge reason why women say no to retreats when they should actually say yes. Like there's an example of the opposite, saying no to something when you really want to say yes.
Yes. Because we're told that that putting yourself first is selfish. And so they talk about it as feeling guilty, but what they're really feeling is selfish, and being selfish is shameful.
Exactly.
Like we look down upon selfish people. We judge them. The last thing we want to feel is I'm selfish and I'm ashamed about it. Like shame is the worst emotion to feel.
It's actually on the emotional frequency scale, it's a lower frequency than grief. So we actually avoid it more than we avoid grief.
The other thing that I wanted to say that is possible is that when you are looking around you at your situation and thinking there's just too much, it's impossible for me to stop. Or it's impossible for me to say no. I couldn't say no to that project at work. I couldn't say no to whatever. When you start shedding these underlying beliefs, it actually helps you in your work and in your life to choose more appropriately what to say yes to. So you actually at work, you end up being more strategic. Instead of saying yes to everything, you say to the things that are really going to move the needle.
It also allows you it forces the person asking to also reevaluate. So I noticed this when I started, I was still working in the corporate world up until a couple of years ago. And I was part-time. And so there were times when I was working full-time hours, early days, I'm working full-time hours and I'm supposed to be a part-time worker so that I have time to run my business. And when I finally started to find my own inner worthiness, I started saying to my boss every time a new project came up, and sometimes, our own, like people that we're just people. Your boss is just a person. And so they can get caught up in stuff too. So I started just saying to him every time, my plate was full. So every time he had something new, I started saying, okay, my plate is full. So what should I take off the priority list in order to make room for this? And it forced him to actually look at what he was asking of me and, oh, okay, where does this fit on the priority list? And that's not going to get you to lose your job. It's actually probably going to gain you more respect because now you're not just trying to fit everything on your plate. It's not challenging him or her or whatever. It's not challenging your boss. It's just asking them to think about where does this sit on the priority list? And most of them actually appreciate that.
Now it's a great reframe. And somebody told me that years ago when I was working. He said, the more people you stand up to and the more people you say no to, the more they respect you. And I saw that happen in the workplace. And at the same time, I still had trouble getting myself to actually do it. So I think, Cher, we need to start wrapping this up. I wanted to touch on the spiritual connection and then what to do.
And the connection to the symptoms too, which we haven't talked about yet, Jen. Let's talk about why you can't say no and just summarize that. So we talked about part of why you can't say no is because of the emotions that you feel that you're trying to avoid. And part of that, and what goes along with that, is when you feel something that you don't want to feel, or you're already getting ready to say no when you don't know that's going to be hard, or you're not sure how they're going to react, your nervous system starts firing up. You're going to release some cortisol. And then because your nervous system is so fired up, you also want to calm that. And what calms your nervous system is saying, yes, oh, okay, I'll do that. Because then you're like, oh, okay, that's what's going to keep me safe.
Yeah. So if you have an underlying, like a fear, a subconscious belief, then your body's going to go into the stress response. In midlife, the stress response is stronger because we don't have sex hormones that are buffering it. And the stress response, so fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, people pleasing tends to be a freeze or a fawn stress response. So we freeze. You kind of get that. It's almost like a deer in the headlights moment. And before you know it, you said yes.
And Jen, what about the fawn? I don't know if everybody knows what fawning is.
So fawning in nature is, if you've ever had a pet, or like dogs do this. My dog used to do this all the time. She puts her head down low. If there's like an alpha in the room, the alpha dog, she will be the one that is fawning. So she will put her head down and sort of submit to the alpha dog, showing like, I'm the submissive one in the room.
You're the alpha. I'm the...
Yeah. So they'll submit. And that is a stress response. It's like making sure that you stay safe by submitting to the other so you don't get hurt. So we do that too. And I used to beat myself up for it. But now that I know that this is just a natural stress response that I've been taught. I was taught to submit. Punishment in childhood, especially physical punishment, tells you to submit.
Exactly.
To anyone who's an alpha. So that's why some kids get bullied.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've been taught to submit. Other kids bully because they've been taught a different coping response. Their stress response, a more dominant stress response for them, is to fight, or to bring themselves up by making somebody else lower. So yeah, in midlife, when you go into the stress response, then it's going to be very hard to interrupt this pattern, and you're going to be a recovering people pleaser forever.
So Jen, it's not enough just to become aware that you are one, and actually not enough to even just know that, oh, I think this came from these experiences as a child.
No, most of the women who come to me, they know I'm trying to prove myself, or I get this because I'm trying to please my dad still at 50 years old. And that only gets you so far. You have to find the specific occasions and feelings and allow yourself to feel them so that you can release them. And that's when you actually stop people pleasing. Suddenly you'll notice you're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, that happened to me. I was like, what did I just say? Where did this person come from? Who am I? It's kind of weird, actually.
Yeah, you feel like a new person. It's such a beautiful thing though, because you don't feel any resistance left in your body. So, I have to admit, I am still recovering in certain instances. And at the same time, there are so many other cases now that I just go, oh, that felt good. It feels powerful and it feels free.
So Jen, is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap this up?
Well, one of the ways that I want to sum it up is this is spiritually, and we're going to get into this in our upcoming spiritual retreats. This causes a low frequency in your body. That is, you become disconnected. Your actions become disconnected to what your soul really wants.
Yes, we talked about that last week as well.
So understanding, peeling away these layers of what exactly is the feeling I get? What is the narrative in my head of when I'm pleasing somebody else? When you peel away those layers, you start to actually know what your soul truly wants. And that feels inspirational. You start to feel a new desire for life.
Yeah, that's also liberating.
Yeah, you feel inspired.
Yeah, like it's like these layers are lifted off and you can finally see, oh, this is what I want. This is what life can look like. It's clarity. It's so many things.
Yeah, so that's the possibility by taking a spiritual approach. And when you start to do that, your physical symptoms start to subside. So by doing that work, you are supporting the supplements and the exercise and the diets and everything else you're doing to try to reduce your symptoms. Doing this work alongside it helps to support that whole process, and you feel better all around.
That's a great way to sum it up, Jen. It's a body, mind, and spirit approach to your health and well-being. Okay, so we also have, so this is one midlife coping strategy. There are 5 more that we're going to talk about. And listener, if you are interested in finding out what is your dominant coping strategy, what's the one that's keeping you busy, potentially stuck, we've got a new quiz out. We're going to drop the link in the show notes. Go take the quiz so you can find out what is your most dominating midlife coping strategy. And then we can help you start to change that. Okay, I think that's a wrap for today. Come back next week. We're going to be talking more about those other 5 coping strategies. And share this with a friend who you know is a people pleaser.